Vaishali, playing with the white pieces, is in scintillating form in this tournament. She opens the game with 1e4. Her opponent is Shamsiddin Vokhidov, a member of the Uzbek team that won the gold medal at the Chennai Chess Olympiad 2022. He plays the Sicilian. Vaishali brings her knight out to f3. In this tournament itself, Vaishali has beaten Sethuraman, has drawn with Karthikeyan, Kuybokarov, and so she is in tremendous form. And let's see if she manages to continue this. It's a big challenge for her. She plays the open Sicilian, pawn up to d4. Pawn takes, and knight takes on d4. Now, Shamsiddin has to figure which opening he's playing. He plays a6. This is known as the Sicilian Khan. And Vaishali plays the opening quite slowly. She has 1 hour 27 minutes already on the clock. And she plays this move h3, a little pawn move there, and you can see Shamsiddin doesn't write the move instantly on the score sheet, which means he's a little surprised. This could be some very special prep by Vaishali. Maybe Prague is helping her to prepare there. But this line has been played before by a few players. Mainly it's a waiting move, whether you want to develop your knight on c3 or not, you want to put your pawn on c4, you want your bishop on d3. All of this will be known based on what black does. So knight takes c6, pawn takes, and now you can see that the knight is still on b1 and not yet developed there. So Vaishali goes bishop to d3. White's idea can be to at some point push the pawn to c4, castle it out. Vokhidov plays knight f6, and a common trap to know here is not to push your pawn, because then there's a check and you lose the pawn. So it's much better to just castle. That's what Vaishali does. She castles it out. And a common idea here is to play your pawn up to d5, and that's exactly what Shamsiddin does. He plays his pawn to d5. Now if white takes, then black will take back with the c pawn. So it does make sense to keep control of this pawn, and that's exactly how Vaishali plays. Knight d2, and structurally black is doing very well, but white is ahead in development. So bishop e7, and you can now protect your pawn on e4 even further with queen e2, but Vaishali goes b3, and that's a very nice idea. You want to put the bishop on this long diagonal where it would be very powerful. Black castles it out, and now Vaishali plays her bishop on b2. You can see how wonderfully each of white's pieces developed. Black also has done well in the opening, but his bishop on c8 is not active, and Shamsiddin now uses his a pawn in two ways. One is he wants to create play on the queen side, which Vaishali stops with a4, but the other is that this bishop can now come to a6 and trade itself off for the white good bishop on d3. So that could be one of the plans, but Shamsiddin says, I don't want to go for it right now. I want to trade off this bishop on b2. That's what I would like to do. So he goes knight to d7, and also maybe he comes to c5 and attacks this. Rook e1 played, and Vaishali now, if knight comes to c5, maybe she just wants to drop her bishop back to f1. So subtle play going on at this point. Shamsiddin goes bishop f6, provoking Vaishali that go e5, close my bishop, and I'm happy with this structure. I want to play in the center, and I think it's a good idea. But Vaishali, rather than doing that, takes on f6. Maybe she wants to next play e5 after black takes back, but I think black is not going to take with the knight, takes with the queen, which means that now e5 is not possible because it's well protected square, and the queen is nicely positioned on the f6 square, looking at these squares here on white's queen side. Vaishali goes knight to f3. Yes, e5 could be in the air, and Shamsiddin now has to decide which way does he want to continue. He goes bishop a6, and he also has some time lead on the clock. He's also making his moves very confidently. Bishop has come to a6, and now Vaishali maybe has to trade her bishop. She takes on d5. Very interesting decision. In fact, she has a very concrete solution because her decision of taking improves black's structure. If you look at it carefully, now black's pawns look so beautiful. Also, the rook can come to c8. It's looking very good for black. However, look at this concrete idea. She takes, rook takes, and now you will see that this knight is undefended. So actually, she intends to make use of that and push her pawn to c4. Very good, very concrete. Now, black's best move here is to go knight c5. If you take, then rook d6, followed by rook d8 and taking this pawn, and the position is equal. But Shamsiddin goes rook d6 first, and I think this allows Vaishali to first of all put even more pressure on a5 pawn. Now black must defend it with rook a8 or even queen d8 for that matter. It would be good. But no, he goes knight c5, and this is the start of a wrong calculation because Shamsiddin wants to fork, but Vaishali, after some thought, just takes the pawn here on a5 and tells Shamsiddin, you've not calculated this correctly. Because now after knight takes b3, yes, there is a fork, but Vaishali simply comes back, queen b4. This entire expedition requires great belief in your calculating abilities because in front of you is a GM who's playing confidently, but Vaishali understands that after queen takes on d6, now the knight is offside. She has a passer here. Her knight is coming to e5, which would attack the knight, and also knight d7 threatened. And with all of this, Shamsiddin goes knight c2. And maybe he thinks his position is fine here, but actually it isn't. Black has back rank issues to solve because the king is here. Meanwhile, white's fifth move was h3, so there are no back rank issues there. Queen d8 played by black, but hey, now it's just very bad because I'm going to play c5 and notice that the material is even. Vaishali thinks for a long time, comes down to 2 minutes, but pushes her pawn to c5, and she's like, if you take, I'll take back. But Shamsiddin goes knight a3, and Vaishali plonks her rook on the 7th heaven. She goes to b7, and Shamsiddin attacks the queen here on d6, but now you can simply take the queen, and that's what she does. Queen takes queen, rook takes, and now carefully, you have to play very carefully because these two pawns, first of all, a5 is not possible, knight takes a5 is coming, c6 is possible, c6, c7, rook b8. That's a straightforward plan. She goes c6. c6, c7, rook b8 is an idea, but black feels that he can defend. He goes king f8. Because if black's pieces coordinate c7 played, then like if the rook comes here and the king comes here, Vaishali might lose her pawns. So she has to be very careful about the way she is progressing here. She goes rook b8 and forces her opponent to play knight d6, which Shamsiddin does. And now his idea is to come here with the king and pick up this pawn. But you can't really play a5 because if you do this, king e7, a6, here, rook c7, and black is fine. So Vaishali finds this wonderful move, knight d4, where she wants to deflect the knight and take this. It's so well done, and you can see Shamsiddin now knows that the writing is on the wall because Vaishali finds all the best moves. Next, she also goes knight b5. Even though she has so little time on the clock, 3 minutes, the moves are flowing easily for white. Pawn to d4, interesting move. If you take the pawn, he wants to take here, and if you take the knight, then rook c7, and he wants to try this. So Vaishali must be careful. She goes such a wonderful move, king f1, because she's using all her pieces. She wants to stop the pawn with her king and eventually just take this knight. That's how she wants to continue. f6 played. Maybe the idea is to push e5. The simplest of plans now is to just start pushing your pawn, because you can never take the knight. The rook is hanging, so she does push a5. Fantastic play by Vaishali. Almost flawless. King d7. Now the threat is to take on b5. So you have to be careful. You have to just make sure that you're not blundering something. Knight d6. Well played. You can't take the knight. The rook is hanging, and if you take the rook, I'll make a queen. So you will have to take on c7. But that means that you are simply a piece down. An entire piece down. Rook takes c7. And also the king is very much ready to come in. So with all these things, it's already game over. Vaishali now can bring her knight back to b5. And she's on move number 35. Maybe Shamsiddin will play until move 40. He's piece down. He'll try. But after that, I think resignation is on the cards. No, he resigns instantly. And Vaishali beats another grandmaster in this tournament with 4 out of 5. She's confidently moving towards this third GM norm. And if she hits 2500 ELO, from which maybe she's around 30 points away, she will become India's next GM and the third female to become a grandmaster in India after Humpy and Harika. In the next round, however, she faces a huge challenge in the form of Gukesh.